Thank you so much for the introduction. Really happy to be here. Thank you for making the time, particularly when it's the lunch hour. I know how hard it is to come in to your panel when it's lunchtime, but we will hopefully get through this, try to add some value, answer some of your questions. And actually, that reminds me, if you want to submit questions, go into the Brella app in the upper left-hand corner. There's an opportunity and an option there to go into the Q&A. So please do add questions. We decided ahead of time, instead of saving the questions for the end, we're going to try to take them as we go. So if you hear something that you want to hear a little bit more about or have a question that pops to mind, please add them in the app, and they will show up on my iPad right here. All right, so we're going to start with introductions. I'm going to let Mohan introduce himself first, please.
Hello, I'm Mohan. I'm the CTO at VisitorsCoverage. VisitorsCoverage is a marketplace. We specialize in distribution of travel insurance products. On VisitorsCoverage.com, you'll find a lot of travel insurance products. We're based in the USA. So, we took 16 years of our experience with VisitorsCoverage.com and our customer-centric focus of doing things and built a SaaS platform called Trepi.io, which actually enables anyone to embed travel insurance products in their travel journey, the customer journey. So I'm very excited to talk about that embedded insurance and our experience with that and share with you today.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, hi. Afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave Priestley. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Vitality in the UK. I think most people probably have some sense of who Vitality are. I think a previous panelist gave a little advert for us, which was nice. We're focused, obviously, on health, life, car insurance in the UK, but trying to disrupt those markets, really, with differentiated products that help our members to either be healthier, be better drivers, generally improve their lives and offer additional value to members through that kind of shared value insurance model. And yeah, I think from my perspective today, I mean, I'm less of a specialist in the embedded sort of arena, if you like, but hopefully I can offer a slightly different perspective from the point of view of a sort of branded insurance company and how we maybe look slightly differently about the embedded insurance opportunity.
Yeah, and lastly, from me, just to round things out, so I'm a co-founder in Rival. We're a marketing strategy and technology business. So I'm not coming at things from a product or a technical standpoint, which I actually think could be interesting. I often find at industry events, we do a lot of work in financial services. Previous to Rival, I was the CMO at a company called 11FS, if you're familiar with them. But I often find that marketing isn't as well represented in the conversations that we have, and I feel that all growth at the end of the day comes from innovation of the product and the brand and marketing. And so I think it's always interesting, even though I do not have the product or the technical expertise that these two gentlemen do, to bring that perspective to bear on the conversation that we have today. So with that, we actually kind of threw out the initial questions that we had for this panel and reshaped things a little bit. So we're going to see how this goes. But what we wanted to do to give you a sense of the journey that we want to go on trying to answer this question is we're going to start with the basics. We're going to start with, let's all align on what does embedded insurance actually mean. It's a term that's thrown around and talked about so much, but depending on where you're coming from within the industry, you might have a slightly different perspective. So we're going to align on that first. And then we're going to get into what does it look like right now? What's happening right now within the industry, the changes that embedded insurance is driving. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about where things are going, the challenges and the expectations for partners in the space, how non-insurance partners are coming into the space, and then finally we'll get to the punchline of what is embedded insurance going to look like over the next 5 years. And again, please do add questions as we go, and I will try to get to them. All right, Mohan, we're going to start with you. What does embedded insurance mean to you, and what different forms can it take?
That's a very interesting question. And, if you think about travel insurance, I'll talk very specific to travel insurance, but embedded insurance applies to all other insurance categories along the same lines. If you think about travel insurance, you have all seen embedded insurance in play. If you have ever purchased a ticket from a booking site, like Expedia, Booking.com, or anything, you were given an offer to buy an insurance to cover the travel risk if you wanted to make a cancellation or anything during the journey. So to me, embedded insurance is all about offering the product the insurance product for risk protection in your journey of purchase at point of sale, whether you're buying a product or a service. So you could have purchased an electronic device at a store in the earlier days before online transactions, and you were offered a warranty on at the point of sale. Do you want an additional warranty for this? So that's a form of embedded insurance. But with digitization and the technology having moved so far ahead, now we can embed insurance offers within the product journeys. So to me, that is the definition of embedded insurance, and it is very customer centric in the context of the customer. So you're thinking about a risk, you can embed the insurance offer at that point for that context, and make a sale.
And I think that's a really interesting point on customer centricity, and I'm sure it's not the last time we're going to use that term in this conversation, but I think a lot of what the conversation around embedded insurance does is it kind of shifts the perspective away from what are we or what are what are providers offering to what does the customer need.
Exactly, like product centric to becoming customer centric.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, look, I'd defer to Mohan in terms of the technical definitions of it. I mean, I think from my perspective, I think everybody would know these kind of models have been around for many, many years. I think what's happening more recently is, as Mohan was alluding to, is the rapid growth in these models on the back of digitization of products, and particularly the kind of the development of much more kind of digital interfaces from consumer brands that can leverage that into an insurance sale, but also the development of insurance businesses and their ability to integrate digitally with third parties as well, and make use of those new channels. There's obviously a few different forms that it takes, from very simple kind of white label, one-click kind of purchase models, all the way through to kind of more sophisticated, tailored, customized kind of products where there may even be still some brand representation. I think speaking from a kind of the perspective of an insurer here in the UK that's looking to develop a strong brand, that in itself, has kind of encouraged us to look at these kind of models perhaps from a slightly different perspective. We're not necessarily looking at just white labeling a product into a third-party brand and potentially kind of disintermediating ourselves in that way. We're looking at opportunities to partner more with third parties and leverage more of a partnership model where we can benefit from the embedded insurance kind of model and approach, but at the same time try and find a way of doing that actually enhances our product differentiation and gives us an opportunity to kind of build strong relationships with customers that purchase through those channels. And I think that's perhaps slightly different to how kind of most people are approaching that embedded model at the moment, and perhaps slightly more complex, but it's just, I guess, a different lens that we put on it at the moment.
And that is something that I want to come back to, because again, for me, coming at this conversation from more of a marketing standpoint, I think the role of brand within the industry is so important, and it's very different for Vitality than it is for some of the partners or the platforms that are coming up in this space. So moving on to the second question, how is the shift towards embedded insurance impacting traditional insurance models? David, maybe we can start with you actually on that one.
Yeah, well, look, I think the appeal there, I think what it offers traditional insurance is, I think fairly clear. It offers an opportunity for more cost-effective customer acquisition. I think that's one of the big attractions for the embedded model. I think it also potentially, if done in the right way, offers an opportunity to reach out to a broader audience. I think on the previous panel, someone was making the kind of, that kind of often repeated point around insurance being, kind of sold rather than bought. And, I think this model is I think one of the things that some insurances certainly have struggled with is finding that reach beyond the kind of market segment that they've managed to secure and kind of to this point, and embedding into a strong consumer brand which is kind of interacting with customers at a different point in their life, does create the opportunity to perhaps reach out to a broader audience beyond your core traditional market segment. So I think those are two things that I would say are very attractive for traditional insurance through the embedded model. But I think there are kind of things that I guess we would say you need to watch out for. I mean, I made the point about disintermediation. You know, I think as an insurer, you've got to be very clear about what you want your relationship with the customer to be, and whether you're prepared to hand that relationship off to a third-party brand, and effectively let that consumer brand lead the relationship with your customer. I think you've got to be mindful of some of the issues around pricing and product and risk. So if you're presenting your product at a certain point in someone else's transactional journey, how does that affect the selection of risk at the point of sale? And so there's some complexities to work through there. So I mean, I think there's some obvious benefits, but there's also a number of things that I think traditional insurers need to be really kind of mindful of as well.
I'm going to go off script for a second, so bear with me. But a question that popped to mind for me. So, again, my perspective, the work that we do, marketing strategy, but really it's focused on understanding how categories are changing and how businesses can take advantage of that change as opposed to be taken advantage by it, right? So be a challenger as opposed to the opposite, right? And get aged out. I'd be curious, one of the quotes that always goes through my mind is change happens gradually and then all at once, right? And so with changes like embedded insurance, with trends, how do you in your role kind of stay on top of that? And I guess what I'm getting at is more from like a process perspective. So clearly you have a point of view on what your strategy is for this. How do you actually get there? Is there kind of like a set process where you sit down with your team and say, hey, this is something that we need to develop a strategy on?
No, I think we typically would take more of an approach of focusing on our kind of business and customer strategy as the primary sort of areas of focus for us, and then we'd look at models such as embedded insurance as potential mechanisms and solutions to help us get there. So rather than looking at something like embedded insurance as this is a trend, it's clearly a growing kind of market here, we should be in it. I think we're more thinking, look, what's our overarching business strategy? What are the goals we're aiming for over the next 12 months, 36 months, whatever it may be? And are there some things that we can learn from what's happening in the world of embedded insurance that might help us realize those goals more effectively?
I really like that, because I also think that there's a tendency with new trends, and particularly new technology, for it to become a solution looking for a problem. Hey, we need to do something on this, as opposed to having a clear strategy and figuring out how new trends and new tech can actually help you get there faster, better, differently. Mohan, so I'll restate the question because I know we took a little bit of a detour, but how is the shift towards embedded insurance impacting traditional insurance models from your perspective?
So I think, primarily it's affecting the distribution model. And then you can think everything else, like there's a secondary set of changes that comes because of this distribution model changes and the demand that's generated. So if you think about travel, how many people thought about travel insurance? It's an afterthought. So you buy a ticket, you buy a hotel, you make a reservation, and you're trying to cover the financial risk or a medical risk because of a travel. You had to go and purchase insurance on a different website from a different place. So it was an afterthought. And you have 7 billion people in the world who can travel, who are potential customers, but how many people ever buy travel insurance? Now you have a huge opportunity. So you're going in the face of the customer where they are purchasing their tickets, the way they're making their hotel reservations, event reservations. So if I were coming to this conference, I had to make a reservation 6 months in advance to get a good deal. I had to book airlines and hotel. And the thought that's going on in my mind is, can I make it to that event? What's the risk? Is there a family obligation that I have to take care of? Health risks that I have to cancel? And if I were offered an opportunity to buy an insurance at the point of sale, it would have been amazing, right? I would have converted. It's for an extra, like a 10% cost or whatever it is. It's a peace of mind. So I think it's a huge opportunity for distribution, and we have to take advantage of this. Everything else, like, is a secondary thing. It's a result of technology and embedded insurance, the creation of demand. Like you talked about underwriting, claims processing, and creation of great products that is customer-centric. These are all happening, not just because of embedded insurance, but because the technology has reached a level where this can happen. The technology has matured. It gives you a lot more data to act on that. But I think the primary thing is about distribution.
So
Can
we
I
got-
just, sorry, could I
Go
come in,
ahead,
Eric?
yeah,
Just
please.
on that point, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think it is very much a distribution point. I think the product side of things is quite interesting, though, for me as well, because to your point about presenting, you know, that insurance product at the point where it's most relevant, right, in that kind of acquisition journey, I think one of the things that's exciting about that from our perspective is what that means for product development. Because a traditional insurance product may or may not work in that scenario.
Exactly.
So you have to kind of not just see it as a sort of channel that we can slot our products into, but see it as an opportunity to kind of innovate the products you have to deal with a specific kind of requirement or need at a moment in time for the customer. And I think that's, I mean, as an organisation, we're kind of really driven by product and innovation. So that for us is something that's really exciting about this whole area.
I completely agree with it. It's like, you know, if you plug in the same insurance product that you're selling on your website in a journey, that's not going to work. For example, we have on Treppy, we have customers who are integrating for adventure sports, who are trying to sell a insurance plan, destination wedding planners, right? These are two different audiences. You cannot sell the same kind of insurance plan for both. So we need a tailored product. And that's where, you know, the innovation helps, like get the data, understand what the customer needs are, and build a product for that. So embedded insurance is also about giving the right product for the customer at that time.
It really does come back to that at the end of the day, the customer centricity point that you brought up in the first question. Yeah, and I remember, you know, at 11FS, we always talked about analog, digitized, and truly digital financial services. I think it's a similar type of thing. Like a lot of what you see in insurance and banking and other, really in a lot of categories, but certainly within FS overall, is kind of analog or traditional services that have just been kind of put online. And I think the same applies here. It's kind of traditional insurance products that have just been put into the embedded journey as opposed to being truly rethought for what are the needs and expectations of the customer in that journey.
I think you're right. Like I see phase one of it happening right now, because if you see embedded insurance products, what you see is one size fits all kind of products.
Yeah.
And you have to ask them what's the conversion that they're getting, right? The next phase is where you'll start seeing the tailored product that you probably as a customer are really interested in it.
So we've had two questions come in from the audience. I'm going to ask one now, and one I'm going to save because I think it fits better with the fourth question that we came up with initially. But the one I want to ask now is, what are the key technologies shaping the embedded insurance space recently? Don't know if either of you have a perspective on that.
Look, I'm not a technologist myself, so I'll probably defer to Mohan. But I mean, you know, I think clearly from the experience that we've had in those discussions and developing some products in that space, I think that is one of the major challenges for legacy insurers, is that, you know, to be able to do this effectively, you need to have modern technology, or you need to partner with someone who's got that technology, and to be able to, I think as much as anything, make sure you're in a position to be able to meet the needs of the partnership that you're entering into. You know, so you don't find yourself in a situation where, you know, you're excited about a partnership opportunity, you've kind of got your kind of partner organization excited about it, and that you struggle to live up to the pace or the kind of delivery requirements because you're kind of working off legacy systems. So I mean, it's all the typical kind of API purchasing kind of based models and sort of cloud-based services for data and being able to integrate those things quickly and efficiently into your existing technology stack.
So I think in terms of technology, I think it's a segue to your next question probably, but so I'll not go too deep into this one, but it's all about I think technology is already there. It's not just about technology, but we'll cover other aspects of it, which makes it, you know, successful. Technology-wise, you have to have the simplest technology because in terms of travel insurance, for Treppy, we are talking about vendors or merchants who are not having strong engineering, in-house engineering teams. So you got to make it so easy for them that they can do no-code integrations or very quick one-click or a few lines of code integrations, and they can plug it into their website. So the technology is already there. I've seen many different companies that are participating in this conference. And Trepi, we have done that too. We have no-code integrations, API or embedded. We can offer. You can pick your integration choice depending on the strength of your engineering teams you have. You can customize it. If you have a strong engineering team, you can build a mobile app and embed the entire customer experience inside that. If not, just white label it, just put a piece of JavaScript code and embed it into it. So, but we'll go into the other question we'll add is probably additional details.
Well, there was another question that just came in, which is very apropos to what you just said, which is what is the key to building no-click or one-click insurance?
What's the key?
What is the key? Or I'm assuming there are a few. So what are some of the keys to building no-click or one-click insurance?
I'm assuming they are asking about the integration part, not building a service like Trepi. So if it's about building, offering a service with a no-code integration, you'll have to think about all the aspects that needs to go into it and build it so easily that you can put a small, when we say no-code, it's mostly about you copy paste or click a button and then it integrates into your site. So you can build it in many ways. What Trepi does is it allows you to copy a piece of JavaScript and embed into your site, and voila, you have your own marketplace embedded inside your site.
All right, moving on. From our initial set of questions, question number 3. What are the current challenges and expectations for partners? What does it take to be successful in the embedded space? Mohan?
I love this question because everybody thinks about embedded insurance as like you just plug it in. It's all about the thought of technology, right? Technology is just one piece of it, and you can solve it very easily. You just work with somebody, hire a good tech person, and you can solve it. But there are a lot of other challenges, like especially if you're partnering and want to embed travel insurance or any other product into your customer journeys, you have to think about a lot of things. So the first thing is you should think about the integration options. Like what is your tech team, what's your strength, and what kind of an integration are you willing to do? Do you want a white label? Do you want a no-code integration? Do you want an API integration? Choose a partner that has various wide range of integration options. And then you want to see what is the support level you can get, because many times you might get stuck integrating and you don't have a support system. You can go to the largest company, start integrating with them, and you call them, they're not going to offer you support. You're too small for them. Third, you got to see the resiliency, or how good are these partners on a weekend if the system goes down, because you're embedding the insurance or whatever you're embedding into your own customer's journey. So what happens if there's an error? Is the partner going to take care of it? Are they going to address it immediately? And then there are other things like regulations. Does the partner or whoever you're working with understand the regulations? Are they going to help you, guide you in those things? And then you should also think about other systems like product choice. Like we said, one size doesn't fit all. Like the partner, can they offer a product choice? Trepi, our strongest advantage is that we work with a lot of carriers, travel insurance carriers, and we have created a platform wherein it's one API that exposes all the travel partners with one single API. If you had to do an integration with each one of the carriers, you'll have to have a strong tech team and build those kind of integrations. So that's something that we solve. And then lastly, post-sales support. Because guess who the customer is calling if they have a trouble with insurance, when they have to file a claim? And what's the reputation? Like you are a very branded non-insurance based company and you're selling insurance to make some additional revenue. But if things go bad, then they're going to give a 1-star review on your site. So you better partner with somebody who's got a strong customer support, who can support you in the time of need.
I think that's such a good point, and I would imagine something that doesn't get talked about enough, but is such an important part of the customer experience.
Exactly.
Post-purchase, particularly with any problems that they have.
Yeah.
What is that interaction?
Especially with insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good ones. David, current challenges and expectations for partners. What does it take to be successful?
No, look, I think Mohan's covered it very well there. I mean, I think the only thing I'd add is, I touched on this earlier, I think from our perspective, you've got all those kind of practical considerations, right? You've got the kind of technology, getting the kind of product pricing correct, customer experience, making sure you've got the kind of right journey for the kind of purchasing experience, those kinds of things. All those are the sort of absolute minimum requirements. I think the one thing from our perspective that we put a lot of emphasis on is the partnership, and maybe we have a slightly different model in that we're not necessarily going into these things as a kind of pure white label, one of many, into a kind of big consumer brand necessarily, but we're looking for a more strategic relationship and selecting the right partner, having clearly aligned kind of goals and outcomes and expectations is sort of super critical from our point of view. I mean, you talk about, you're going to launch these kind of products, you're not going to get them right off the bat, right? You're going to have a period of time where you're kind of iterating and learning and trying to kind of refine things and fine-tune it to get it right. On the basis of that, taking that assumption, you're going to need a partner that you can work with to refine it. You're now in a position where you've got a codependency for a product with a third party. So you need to have a really good understanding about ways of working, data, how you're going to kind of understand performance, how you're going to track performance, how you're going to monitor it, how you're going to iterate it, how you're going to make changes to the experience, how you're going to make changes to the product, to the price, etc. And I think you need to, again, depending on the kind of depth of the relationship, but certainly from our perspective, we would want to be getting into all of that detail with any potential partner up front and making sure we're kind of very aligned in how we're going to work. Otherwise, things can potentially unravel very quickly if we're looking to make lots of changes and tweak this and refine this, and we're working with the third party. I'm sorry, get in the queue. That's, you're kind of in a 6-month backlog or something. So I think I think that partnership aspect for me, on top of all of the things that Mohan said, I think is super important.
Can I add
something
else to this one? So we talked about from the non-insurance brands that want to integrate, right? And this is an ecosystem. So there are players like the insurers, and the non-insured partners and the customers. So for the ecosystem to be successful, all three have to participate. And what's the responsibility of the insurers? So if you see, Accenture did a little research, and then it says that 85% of people still prefer to talk to insurance agents. What does that say about, embedded insurance? So if you're embedding an insurance, and if 85% of the people want to talk to an agent before they buy insurance, I mean, this doesn't say any category, but I'm sure the travel insurance, if you take specifically, you don't want to read all the clauses and the fine print and stuff to make decisions there. You want a very simple product. So what we can do is, as insurers, try to simplify the product. Don't build a mega product. Build tailored products that solves a particular use case and allow the customer to make the decision quickly, right? So that's a very important thing for the ecosystem to work. And also be ready to offer tailored products. We cannot do a one-size-fits-all and say we are product-driven, we have a product, we want to sell it. Going back to that customer-centric experience, like, I need to build a product that my customer wants. And we do a lot of this at VisitorsCoverage and Trepi, so we have a lot of data. When we build travel insurance products, we see what the customers are asking. We talk to our customer service agents and see what the gap is, and we go to our carriers and say, can you build this product for us? So, and that should be done more frequently for embedded insurance.
Great segue. We have a lot more audience questions that have come in, and one of them is, how do you deal with requirements to meet exact client demands and needs, while embedded solution often only comes as one size fits all?
That's right. So you take that, and as distributors, we don't create products, so we work with our carriers. We have a very good relationship with them. We go back to them and say, this is the need. This is what our customers are asking for. Can you create a product for this one? So for example, like in the US, when you're traveling to the US, the medical cost is pretty high. So there are certain pre-existing conditions that's not covered in your regular insurance. And that was the biggest pain point. We had a lot of people traveling, asking for pre-X coverage you didn't have. So we took that to our carrier and said, we want to build a product for this one. And what happens, guess they say, we don't have data for this. We don't know how to assess the risk. So in certain cases, you have to take the risk and estimate and do it. So our CEO was able to get it done, and we had one of the first pre-X plans on our site for travelers. So you have to work with your insurers. You can leverage the partnership strength that you have, or go to one of the distributors that have a leverage like us, and we will work with them to create products that are tailored to those situations. Now with Trepi, we have a very good relationship with our carriers. We can create tailored products for embedding inside your travel journey anywhere. So I believe there's a potential, there's a possibility for doing that.
So David, another audience question that I'd love to get your perspective on. How can embedded insurance wean consumers off comparison websites? Will most consumers still choose to sense check the quote rather than buy at point of sale?
I'm not sure what's going to wean people off comparison sites. I mean, I guess it depends on the category, but certainly for the categories that dominate comparison sites today, I mean, I'm not sure anytime soon anyone's going to significantly pull people away in large numbers from the comparison sites. I think maybe, you see, I guess you take motor insurance as an example, you can see the emergence of some quite smart, innovative embedded models with the likes of Tesla and Volvo and these kind of things. They've got very strong brands. You can see an obvious relationship between the insurance product and the kind of, in that case, the purchase of the vehicle or the lease of the vehicle. And they can use that as a way of tying the insurance to another purchase, which negates the need necessarily for an insurance comparison or whatever it may be. But I think they are very much in their infancy as kind of products, and there are probably only certain brands that are going to be in a position to do that kind of thing very effectively. So I guess my thought is that the comparison sites are going to dominate those sectors for some time to come. There will be the emergence of some of these kind of very specific types of product in certain sectors, and very powerful consumer brands will make some progress there, but I don't think it's going to be a massive movement, not in the foreseeable future.
Cool. All right, let's get back on track. So we started with the definitions, different forms that embedded insurance can take. We talked a bit about where we are right now, what's happening in the industry right now. So I want to shift for the next two questions from our initial list to talk a little bit more about the future and actually pay off the headline of this panel. So starting with, how are non-insurance partners coming into this space? What are consumer priorities going to be? And I'm actually going to weave in a question from the audience here because I think it fits very well. So what are consumer priorities going to be, but also what will drive consumer behavior aside from ease? Mohan or David, you want to start?
Sure, yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, if you look at insurance more broadly, certainly one of the things we're seeing coming through from all the kind of insight research we're gathering is that consumers are looking and expecting their insurers to be offering more than just being a kind of a risk carrier of, for whatever sort of purpose. I think they're looking for more of a purpose-driven proposition, more value-added benefits, more in areas of risk prevention, risk mitigation, more proactive services, and more, frankly, more kind of ethical propositions coming from their insurance companies. And so the reason I'm talking a bit about that is because I think if you look at non-insurance brands that can enter this space, some of those organizations are making much more progress in those kind of areas than insurance companies are. And I mean, I talked to a couple of car manufacturers. They take Volvo as an example, very strong in a lot of those areas in terms of digitized services, value-added benefits when you kind of purchase or lease a car. Their kind of brand reputation around things like safety has a strong correlation with insurance as a concept. There's kinds of lots of things that some of these brands are developing at much faster pace and much more successfully than insurance companies are. So I guess the kind of point I'm getting at there is that if insurance companies don't start developing in those directions more proactively and at a faster pace, then I see some of these big consumer brands stepping in and adding insurance successfully to their range of products and almost dragging the insurance into their propositions in the vacuum that's left by the insurers, not sort of taking their propositions forward, if that makes sense.
Yep. Mohan?
So you can see this from two, it has two parts. The question has two parts, right? One is how are non-insurance partners coming into the space? And then the second one is what is the customer expectation? So if you think about it, non-insurance brands can come into the space. It's kind of level the playing field. You know, for large companies earlier, large companies could integrate, embed insurance offers into their customers' journey because they had a strong technical team. They could do deeper integrations with the partners or insurance companies and stuff. Now you have technology, you have third-party companies, you have companies like us with Trepi, which allow anyone to do integrations with no code or a few lines of code integrations. So we've kind of leveled the playing field for everyone. So if you are, let's talk about travel specifically, right? If you are a boutique travel firm and you want to offer travel insurance, well, you have nothing to lose. The barrier to entry is very low. Technology-wise, nothing. You just can integrate. Cost-wise, there's nothing. You don't have to pay an upfront cost to integrate and sell the services. You get free support, technology support. You get customer support. And you get the regulations, the support, the industry knowledge that we have. Everything is given to you. So the barrier is very, completely reduced. What is missing is the education. Like, do they know that they can offer embedded insurance? There's a lot of work we are doing, marketing, going to trade shows and educating them about how they can sell insurance. That's something that we should work on as insurers and distribution agents. From the customer perspective, what are they looking for other than convenience? They are looking for something like, an Amazon experience. So it's just not convenience. It's not that I want to buy insurance in my journey. But they have very high expectations. We talk to our customers every single day that reach our website and talk to our customer service agents. The questions are like self-service. Why cannot I cancel my insurance or do corrections and stuff online? Why do I have to call an agent? So self-service number one. Can you do it yourself? Without having to call. Claim resolutions. Why does it take like 2 weeks, 4 months? Can we not do it faster? Like Amazon, I click a refund, I get the cancellation, I return a product, and I get it on the next day. So their expectation from insurance companies is like from other e-tailers.
I think one other thing to sort of just throw into the mix there, I think, is the nature of the insurance product we're talking about. Because if it's, I completely agree with that. If it's a commoditized product, there's kind of no barriers to entry for a consumer brand to look at how I could embed a commoditized insurance product into my range and it's just a opportunity cost, right? Should I do that or should I do something else with my product? That's the trade-off. But I think the hard thinking needs to be done more by the insurance companies, about whether that's something they want to do as part of their strategy. Because if you kind of decide to put your eggs in that basket, you are making some proactive decisions about your relationship with your customers, and you're, obviously, again, depending on how you execute, you're kind of disintermediating yourself, and you potentially opening up risks in the business model that you don't necessarily have today. So for commoditized products, I kind of get that, and maybe consumers are looking for that sort of simple one-click purchase decision. I think for differentiated products, I think it's a slightly different, or more complex insurance products, I think it's a slightly different story. And I think there's still a lot of questions around whether an embedded model is going to be successful or right for that. And actually, as I was kind of alluding to earlier, I think the onus is on the insurers to really step up and kind of start delivering much more value through extending their proposition rather than just leveraging the power of someone else's brand.
I had a boss who used to say, the company that's closer to the customer will win. And I think that's relevant to this conversation. The Amazons, the Googles, even some of the car manufacturers that you mentioned. Volvo, the person who asked this question, I didn't include this, but they said, will Tesla and Alexa just take over Tesla? And a lot of that is brand as well as the product, the association, the trust that people have that comes from the ease and the experience that they have that's outside of the insurance category but can easily be dragged in. So we've only got 5 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get to, well, the actual question for this panel. So the last one, and I apologize, we're not going to be able to get to all the audience questions, but I'm going to go ahead and offer these guys up to try to catch them over lunch and see if they can answer them for you if we didn't get to it today. But the last question that we had to answer, what is embedded insurance going to look like in the next 5 years? Mohan?
So I'm not even going to guess what it's going to look like in 5 years, but I think there's a huge potential. Like I said about travel insurance very specifically, that we see that there are 7 billion people on the planet, and everyone is a potential traveler, and everyone is our customer, potential customer. So that's a huge market. Now, how do we get there? Are we ready for it? Is the question we ask every single day. Are we ready for it? With regulations, like regulation is a big thing. Even today, we cannot sell certain travel products within all 50 United States, states in the United States. There are restrictions in different states. So how soon can we get things to change? Because embedded insurance is a completely different beast. I mean, it's not just selling on my website, I'm selling it on somebody else's website. And how am I complying with regulations and all those things I have to worry about it. Next thing is as insurers, like I said, are we ready to build those tailored products? Because I think that's key to getting embedded insurance being successful. And this could be slightly different from David's experience with Vitality and stuff. But for me, for travel insurance, I just cannot see it being successful by embedding the same insurance product on all different websites. It's not just going to work. I mean, it could be a fad, like it'll die within a few years if we continue to do that. The only way we can make it successful is to customize the product, understand the customer, build a product that they really want. And I think for me, like the opportunity is huge, but where we are at today, I think we have made tremendous progress, but there's still progress need to be made for embedded insurance to be really successful. At least in the space that I am, like the travel insurance.
David, take us home.
Look, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of investment, startup funding going into this space. I think something like best part of $1 billion worth of startup funding was put into embedded insurance businesses in 2022. I mean, it's clearly going to be a growth area. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I agree. I think what you'll see is a lot of organisations, a lot of brands attempting to do it. Some will do it brilliantly by getting the product and price mix right, getting, kind of positioning it at the perfect moment for the customer in the sort of purchasing journey, and they'll take off. And a lot will fail. A lot will get it wrong and maybe not think deeply enough about what they're trying to achieve or how to execute it brilliantly. But I think the trajectory will be continued growth. But again, I think we'll see that growth accelerate much more in the... So I don't mean executing it with generic products, but I mean in the commoditized insurance sectors with well-executed, tailored products, if that makes sense. I think that's where we'll see things really accelerate. I think in the more differentiated insurance markets, I don't expect it to accelerate or grow quite as quickly. I see the insurers getting their act together a bit more and developing their propositions and probably holding their own in that sense.
All right, that's all we got for you today. Hopefully that was interesting and valuable. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everyone.